Wasabi wallet. Unfairly private.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's another Friday. That means we do another episode of Why Are We Bullish? I've got some fantastic guests coming on today. Going to be a great bullish episode. Plenty to talk about. I know why I'm feeling bullish. How have you guys been? Have you been stacking sats through this dip? I sure as hell hope so. As always, this is live. Anything can happen. So a quick disclaimer from my good friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
I can see the people piling in. We're getting close to 100 people here already. Be sure to smash that like button, give this a share, and hit up the chat. I'm going to be pulling in chat messages whenever I see something relevant. As always, I am Ben with the BTC Sessions, and this is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
Now, before we bring in our guests, let's just take a quick look at where we are in the market. This is the bitbo.io dashboard. We're sitting around 50,000 and close to around 600 bucks. It's been kind of all over the place today. We had a substantial dip. We were down in the 40s. I think we went down to 47 something. But right now, on the bright side of things, for a single US dollar, you can pick up 1,975 sats. Stack them all you can. 89% of all Bitcoin have been mined. And in terms of fees, still high for next block, around 210 sats per byte. But we're seeing a little bit of relief if you're willing to wait an hour. 80 sats per byte will do you. Still not cheap, but not as catastrophic as it was the past few days. Also, there's going to be a difficulty adjustment incoming in the realm of 20%. So you'll see blocks start to pop out a little bit quicker. I think that's slated for around May 1st for that change. Welcome. Of course, before we bring in everybody, quick shout out to sponsors of the show, LEDN.io. You can use your Bitcoin for a variety of different services. For myself, these are the guys I go to when I need to get my hands on dollars, but I don't want to sell my Bitcoin because, of course, that is a taxable event. And I'm always worried about having to buy back in at a higher price. So I can go here to fix that problem for myself. And I get back the same amount of sats when I pay back the loan. Of course, they've got their Bitcoin and USDC savings accounts with interest rates up to 12.5% annually paid monthly. And their B2X offering will buy you more Bitcoin with the same loan mechanism if you're feeling mega bullish. Check them out. Links are down below. Up next, Cobo Vault, one of my most used hardware wallets. I love this thing because it's 100% air gapped, meaning you never plug it into anything internet connected. It's all done offline via QR code, keeping the keys to your money also safe and offline. I love it. It's got a dedicated Bitcoin only firmware. It's got a secure element. And if you get the Pro like I have, there is a fingerprint scanner and a rechargeable battery. Check them out. I like using this thing particularly for multi-sig alongside my cold card. Really awesome for that use case. Of course, I do live on Bitcoin. One of the ways that I can do this, one of the things that really helps me is Bitrefill. You can get just every damn gift card you can imagine. You can pay on chain or via Lightning Network, which makes things super simple for me. And the beauty for me, for somebody living on Bitcoin, is I do get sats back as I make my purchases. So be sure to head over, check them out. Also, beneficial for privacy because once you purchase the gift card, nobody knows what you're buying after that. And finally, don't screw around with backing up your wallets. If you put it on paper, might not be the most secure thing. You can just accidentally throw it out. Also susceptible to water and fire damage. Get yourself something secure on steel like the BillFodl over on privacypros.io. And with that, let's wrap it up. Let's get everybody in here and let me drop my screen here. We're going to welcome to the stage Knut, Greg, and John. Guys, welcome to the show. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Everybody's good. Awesome. I'm glad to see
so
you guys.
pumped.
I'm super stoked. It's going to be great. I think it's great. I'm going to really quick go down the line, let you guys just do a quick introduction of yourselves, and then we'll dive right in. So I'll toss it to Knut first. Dude, can you just do a quick intro of yourself?
Who am I? I am a Bitcoin author. I write books about Bitcoin. I wrote these two. And I've written several articles, and some of them have turned into little animated videos, which I'm very proud of. So there you go.
I'll shill right here.
Yeah. So and I don't know what the future holds for me. I'm eager to find out, though.
Well, it's always great to have you on, and if you haven't checked out his books, you should. They're great. Let's jump next down the line. John, can you give yourself a little introduction?
Absolutely. I'm just a Bitcoin fanboy, a newfound parody cult leader at Sunday Satoshi service, as you know, Ben, where if we're going to get accused of being a cult and religious, let's have some fun and save some shitcoiners from everlasting financial doom. But second, I just wrapped up your book, Knut. Big fan. I got through, I think, Bitcoin through mathematics is the title, but real quick, easy, and really succinct and profound read. So I really enjoyed that. There's so many books that I think are tangential to Bitcoin. And man, did you hit that on the head? I'm going to give that to my brother. I think he's a newly orange pilled a member of the community. And so this is going to be his next gift. So thanks. Bitcoin, Bitcoin dad here, raising the first generation of non-fiat children, trying to attract more folks to the cause. Business owner who's putting a lot of our treasury into Bitcoin, and honestly, just a real fanboy of Bitcoin and what it means for me, my family, and for the world.
Awesome, dude. Glad to have you. And if you haven't heard him on Clubhouse, he is an excellent host, moderator, and frequenter of all the Bitcoin Clubhouse rooms. So be sure to check him out there. And let's jump down the line to our final guest, Mr. Greg Foss. You've been making the rounds. You've been everywhere. And that podcast with you and Preston was absolute fire. So thank you for joining us here today, Greg.
Well, thank you. It's my second time. And Ben, I have to thank you as a fellow Canadian. So I'm based in Toronto, Canada. I'm a 30-year credit trader, which means I traded all sorts of fixed income and debt products. That includes bank loans, credit default swaps, high yield bonds. That's where I got my start, junk bonds. So yeah, I'm one of those crazy junk bond traders. But the thing I need to leave with your listeners is a junk bond is still not as risky as the equity. Everything else being equal, if you own the bond of a company and there's equity and it's called a junk equity, a junk bond, well, the equity is super junk. So never forget that, you guys. Junk bonds aren't as bad as the super junk equity. And that's my finance 101. What am I doing now? I retired from the hedge fund world in 2015, 16. We had completed an incredible career, or a career trade for me. And I said, that's it. I'm out of this crazy fiat world. I got my start. I went to school in the US, came back to Canada, started questioning the fiat system in 1988. And, you know, we don't have to get into it. But what am I involved in now? I fell down the rabbit hole in 2016, and you pulled up BitBo. And that's really cool because we are the company I'm involved with right now, Validus Power. If you looked at BitBo, you would see Validus Power is a sponsor of the BitBo page. And we are Canadian energy company using flare gas to mine Bitcoin. So we're helping to cleanse the environment. I'm not going to say we're greening the environment. We are cleansing the environment using waste energy. So you see the little thing right there, that's us, Validus Power. And that is such a valuable BitBo is to Canadian kids out of Ottawa, right? So we're punching above our weight in Canada, I think. I'm not going to promote Canada over any other region of the world, but very proud to be here. And I also have 3 kids, John. And I'm 57 years old. I need you guys to remember this because I grew up without an iPhone because they didn't exist. I grew up without a personal computer because they didn't exist, all right? I have fallen down the rabbit hole of the beauty of digital decentralization. I'm an engineer from McGill, an MBA from Cornell University in the United States, and I have 3 kids, and I want to save this fiat Ponzi and call it out. So I'm calling out the fiat Ponzi. I've been doing it since I found Bitcoin Twitter, and it is the most beautiful social media platform that I learn continuously. So thank you for having me. And if I look forward to getting into this discussion. So thank you.
This is going to be great. Very excited about this. So those that have not seen the show before, or this iteration of BTC sessions, effectively what Why Are We Bullish is each one of us is going to have a reason we are feeling bullish. On Why Are We Bullish, we live by the 3 R's, and those are: somebody gives a reason why they're feeling bullish, we all together riff on that reason, and then finally we rotate to the next person. So super simple, meant to be just a fun kind of recap of our feelings over the past week or however long. So I'm going to get us started off with a reason for being bullish this week. And it's kind of like antithetical to the name of the show, but it's a contrarian indicator. And what I mean is, would everybody just look at the FUD-filled news nowadays? If you search Bitcoin right now, it just hefty losses, price retreats, crashing right now. And you get into some of these actual articles. Bitcoin sinks as U.S. capital gains tax proposal injects fear into crypto market. And one of the lines, traders are likely anxious to sell now and secure their profits at the current capital gains rate. Are they? It keeps going. Bitcoin price decline deepens, heads for worst week since February. Since February, you guys. Bitcoin price tumbling fast. Fears of a major 50% correction send Bitcoin crashing under 50K. And even more, this is my favorite, Guggenheim's Scott Menard. If you're unfamiliar, Guggenheim is putting tons of Bitcoin into their treasury. He thinks that it could plunge 50% in the near term because things are very frothy. Now, let's think back to January. We're going to hop in our time machine. And in January, Scott Menard went on CNBC and was saying, listen, we surpassed the price target of $35,000, and it is due to it's probably time to take money off the table. Everybody, take money off the table. Now, side note, Scott Menard, at the time, they didn't yet have the ability to start buying Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet. He had to wait to the end of the month. So he's ringing the alarm bells saying, take money off the table. Meanwhile, he's getting ready to stack sats. He wanted your sats then. He wants your sats now. Don't sell your sats to Guggenheim. It's not a good call. And, you know, since his price called in when he was saying, hey, it's 35K, it's too high. Well, I mean, look, we crashed to 50K. We crashed to 50K. People are bitching and complaining about 50K. And here we sit. And the funny thing is, in the little notes here, he says, I think we could pull back to $20,000 or $30,000 on Bitcoin, which would be a 50% decline. And then just a little note, however, Menard says he remains bullish over the long run, predicting an eventual rise to $400,000 to $600,000. So this dude is saying Bitcoin's going between 400 and 600K, but beware, we just crashed and we might crash a little bit further below 50K. Dude is telling you to take money off the table now. It is. I don't even know what the words. Is this malicious? I don't know. Like, Knut, what do you think of this? Do you think he's just trying to play the game, trying to get people to dump? Like, what are your feelings here, Knut? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, what are my thoughts on this? Like, I hear the term 4D chess a lot, and I think 2D chess is hard enough for people. and I think no human being can master 40 chess. So he's just trying, but it's sort of obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. I think so. Are you at all worried about short-term price corrections? I already know the answer, but
No, they're an opportunity, of course, as always. They've always been, and they always will be. Which I'll get into that later, because that is why I'm bullish.
that's great. John, what are your feelings on this latest round of FUD news? Mild correction here. How you feeling?
I mean, I had this conversation with HODL like 2 days ago. It's like, how many times can he get away with this? Right? Like, that's the real question, right? Like, it's like the third time. It's like every month on the month, it needs to shake some weak hands. And this is where I try to implore those, man. Like, these are guys that are trying to buy your Bitcoin. Ben hits on it all the time. Don't let them stack your sats, right? And like, to me, this is a clear example of Wall Street trying to shake weak hands before they make their positions. They don't announce these things and move markets on themselves. And like, what's crazy to me is like, I thought to myself, like, how many times does he get away with this? And it looks like he might be getting away with it again. So yeah, don't sell him your sats. Don't sell me your sats. I'm going to buy them if you do. So that's kind of my take.
Agreed. Greg, what do you think about this? Like, whether it be Scott Bernard, other people calling for big pullbacks, is it relevant at all?
So this is going to be a difficult answer for me, because I came from that community, right? I was a hedge fund manager, and I need to explain how you trade a core position. So let's say Mr. Menard, who I've never met, has a core position in Bitcoin. That doesn't mean he's at max limit long in his core all the time, right? You need dry powder to buy a dip. He can't predict markets. I think Knut said it very eloquently. Nobody can. But you're also a bit of a marketing machine. So you send out smoke signals to the market, because you're marketing your expertise to a whole bunch of institutional investors who may or not become unit holders of your fund. So he has to show an expertise. And some people could call it a coin flip. I happen to believe the hedge fund community is better than a coin flip, but there's lots of people out there that don't think the hedge fund community is better than a coin flip, okay? I spent half of my career, 15 years, working at a hedge fund. You have clients like everyone else. You have to play risk and return. You have to play probabilities, and you have to market yourself as an expert in the square. I like Guggenheim. I do not know Scott. I am not about to diss his expertise in the market. All I will say is this. If he thinks it's going to $400,000, I guarantee you it's a core position in his book, okay? He's not going to be shorted, nor would I ever be shorted. Okay. But he is playing the ability to buy more of it at a lower price, and rightly so. Markets can go up, markets can go down. The most disciplined trader is somebody who is not Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff has been wrong for so long, and he just never reverses position. Whereas Scott has taken a core view that it's going up in price, but he also says markets can get frothy. So all I will say is this. I'm almost certain, but not 100% certain, that Scott is long. He's basically said so. He may not have 100% of his core position, meaning of the entire portfolio that he manages. Maybe he said, my allocation to Bitcoin is going to be 7%, let's just say. Well, he may be riding at 3.5% right now and wants to accumulate more. You guys got to understand that the real money management world out there never goes all in all the time in one asset. They just can't. Or else those people could do it themselves. Their clients could say, oh, Scott, you're 100% in Bitcoin. Why am I paying you 2% per year to manage my portfolio if you're 100% in this one asset? All I'm saying, guys, always take a core position. If you're wrong, and Scott could have been wrong at 25,000, and he may have been buying at 45,000 or 55,000 or 60,000. That's a disciplined trader. An undisciplined trader is somebody like Peter Schiff, who has been wrong since $100 and refuses to reverse his position, even though he has the story mostly right. So I won't take issue with Guggenheim. I will tell you that the number of institutional investors that are getting involved and sophisticated hedge fund investors that are getting involved in this square, you're going to see headlines come out. Raoul Pal going to come out. I might switch all my Bitcoin to Ethereum. All right, mute that and just say he knows, he's pumping subscriptions. Remember what your core position is and stick to your discipline. That's all I'll say.
Love that. My key takeaway was mute Raoul Pal. So everybody, again, we're going to kind of reset the room for anybody that is just popping in, but this is Why Are We Bullish? Name of the game is we all have a reason for being bullish, and we get to riff on each person's reason. And so we're going to toss it down the line. Before we do that, of course, I want to say thank you to everybody that is here and is watching. Of course, smash that like button, give this a share. There's 270 people in the room watching right now. Yeah, let's keep on going. So I'm going to toss it to Knut. And Knut, if you would like to enlighten us with what has you feeling bullish this week?
The same thing as every other week, that everyone underestimates this invention or discovery, because it has been said that the humanity's greatest shortcoming is an inability to understand the exponential function. And Bitcoin is a testament to exactly that, because you have an ever-increasing demand with combined with an ever-decreasing supply. And we're living through hyper-Bitcoinization. We're living through the first small steps of a hyper-Bitcoinized world. And I don't know how many of you saw this, but I pasted a link to a little animation we made a couple of weeks back, or a couple of months back, I believe, in the chat, just on top of the chat, in which we try to explain why Bitcoin's adoption curve may be S-shaped, but the price curve will be J-shaped, because there's no end to hyper-Bitcoinization. And this is the really weird thing, that this invention is so much weirder than we can wrap our heads around. And people are starting to get that. And like there are events coming. Oh, there it is. Like the basic premise of that video is that, Bitcoin adoption may be S-shaped, so that the Metcalfe's law and the network effect makes everyone on Earth sooner or later own Bitcoin, but it doesn't stop there, because then all, I mean, each of us has a different amount of money in the bank, and all that money will sooner or later go into Bitcoin. And but the money printers will keep going, so the price will continue to go up. And when everyone stops using dollars, it doesn't end there. It doesn't even end there, because what do we have then in a hyper-Bitcoinized world without countries and without central banks? Way ahead in the future, we have a global sound money free market, and that is like the best state the world can be in. And that will make production costs go down for everything at an ever increasing rate, even faster than it is now. It's already exponential. And in this like handicapped global free market we have now, where there's interventionism everywhere. But when we have a global totally free market with sound money in its base layer, there's nothing stopping us. And this will take us to the stars, guys. Like, I think everyone is underestimating what Bitcoin will do over the next 10 years. A lot can happen in... I don't remember who said that. I think it was maybe Steve Jobs. Everyone overestimates what happens in a year, but underestimates what happens in 10 years. And I think this is definitely true for Bitcoin, but more on a weekly basis, like or monthly basis. You like you overestimate what will happen during the next month, but you vastly underestimate what's happening, what will happen in the next few years. And this has happened over and over again. Like 2017, when we peaked and crashed, so many people thought it was over. What is it now? Like 2021. It's nothing. It's nothing, and it's like, and who knows where the price is going this year?
Yeah.
You think 50,000 is the top? Come on. You think this is slowing down? Plan B is not bullish enough. Matt Odell is not bullish enough. No one's bullish enough. I'm not bullish enough. This is it, and that's like why I'm bullish this week.
I love it. I mean, you're so right. There's no real measure, no discernible measure for how high Bitcoin can go in dollars, because dollars are infinite, right?
Yeah. But beyond that, there's even no limit to the purchasing power of Bitcoin, which is what really matters, right? Dollars don't really matter. In a few years, they won't matter at all, because no one will be talking about them. There will be a historical thing. And after that, it gets even faster. So, and that's the real fascinating thought. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I can't get it out of my head, because it's too good. It sounds too good to be true. But these are exponentials. They are too good to be true. I mean,
yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. Like the dollar is very quickly becoming a useless metric, and human ingenuity means that we will be able to continuously produce more things, more services, more items, whatever we desire. Will be increasingly efficient at doing that, and good quality items. And so in a world where we become more efficient and create more efficient things, and we have a sound money with a capped supply, you're right. It's dollars are a poor metric. It's the purchasing power of Bitcoin that is exponential.
Yeah. The thing you said about quality there is like everything is of a poorer quality than it needs to be right now because of the fiat monetary system, because things are produced to be sold, scrapped, and sold again. And in a sound monetary system, you things are produced to last. So this is so weird. I don't think anyone really gets what this is about. And
when does that happen, Knut? Like I've had this conversation with lots of people in the community too, right? Like once you start to see things through a bit, unit of count of Bitcoin, the world really starts to significantly change. Like you can't unsee it. It's like, you ever see those videos where they see like they make the glasses for the colorblind folks, and they see it like for the first time. Like I try to.
That's me.
Did you go through that, really, Ben?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, now I have two questions. I start with you here. Another tangent, but. How maybe like I have often used that as an analogy as to like what truly seeing Bitcoin is. Not that you stop learning about it, not that you can stop having truth be revealed through it, but once you know, and you feel like you have this, right, as an investor and an asymmetric type of trade, if you will. But what was that like compared to kind of seeing color for the first time? It's crazy that you've actually gone through that.
I'm so glad that you made this analogy.
You're not off the hook. I got a follow up for you, Knut.
I had never, oddly enough, gone through that analogy in my head, because that experience for me was just something totally separate. With my family, like having that experience of seeing these colors for the first time. So the story was that I learned I was colorblind when I was in grade school. Never really. You just kind of live with it. You don't really know what you're missing. And And then a couple years back, my wife for Christmas got me the chromatic or whatever the name of the glasses are. And, it was dead of winter in Canada. And I was like, well, I don't want to waste these on like the dreary, ugly, frozen wasteland that I'm currently living in. So
the grand reveal, right? For the
yeah.
proper scene.
Yeah. So in March of the following year, we did a trip down to Mexico. And we were staying in the Mayan Riviera. And so she had me put them on. We were in kind of like a resort and we were walking around. She had me put them on when there's like beautiful flowers and lush greenery and everything. And so I'm standing there. I put them on and I was standing beside these plants, the big leaves, and like the tips of them, there were just like shocks of the brightest pink. And I didn't know that the pink was even there. I just thought it was just like a green bush. And all of a sudden I put it on. I'm like, oh, whoa, holy shit. Like I couldn't even see it before. And then she's like, take off the glasses and look at those bushes over there. And she's like, do you see the flowers in them? I was like, no, I see a bush. I see a general, I know it's probably a green bush. And then I put them on and there's just like the brightest red flowers peppered all through them. And so again, after having put them on and then taken them off, I was then aware that there was a difference there that I knew before, but it was interesting. It's the same kind of thing when you experience Bitcoin and you kind of pull back the veil of how things actually work and how much money influences everything we do and how much a perverted monetary system perverts our incentive structures. And you can still view things through the old lens by watching mainstream media, right? You can still go and watch the news and see how the world sees everything right now, people that haven't been orange pilled. And you can still watch and look at that and go, I see how they see it currently, but I can't unsee what I've already seen, because you see the cracks, you see the differences that are there between what you know is true and what you're currently looking at. And so that analogy, again, I had never thought to compare the two, but it is so in tune for exactly what happens when you get orange pilled. So John, thank you for bringing that up. And I invite you to ask your other question to Knut.
No, man, that's pretty cool because I couldn't have possibly known that you had that experience, man. So I'm glad we had that. But Knut, no, you're not off the hook. I got to ask you a question here.
Yeah, but I've got a follow-up question to Ben.
Oh, on the color eye thing. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're not off the hook though. I'm not going to forget it. I got it noted down here.
So the first time you had those glasses on when you pulled a pair of panties off, was that the first time you saw the flower and not only the bush?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I couldn't help myself.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. The awkward silence.
No, I was just hoping my kids weren't watching this. Is all I was thinking. I'm like, if they understood that, that means I failed. That's what I was thinking. So
it's
there we go.
past 11 here.
But so when does that happen? Like, when do you think? And I know you're gonna say, well, I don't know, but like, if you had to guess, because obviously, like, one Bitcoin's one Bitcoin, right? Once you get to unit of account, you stop thinking in terms of what fiat is, what taking profits mean. Like, that just all sounds so stupidly silly, and I'll talk a little bit about on my bullish case. But when is it no longer are we measuring dollars? When is my block clock like no when do I stop looking at that number in my block clock, right? Is that at 1 sat per dollar? Like, when is that like stop? When does that decouple? For a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners, that's true, but we still look at that number, right? And so when does that actually take place? And I'd love to get your take on this, especially after reading your book and thinking about how you kind of fragment things.
Yeah, and my thoughts on this have changed over time. And right now I'm in a phase where I'm not sure if Bitcoin will ever be a practical unit of account because of the J shape. Because like I think if it pumps forever, I think there's a point in time where the price can't go down because of the limited supply and an ever increasing demand. And an ever increasing productivity. People tell me that's not how markets work and stuff, but like that's not how markets work now. But in a hyper Bitcoinized world, we're in a very different situation. So I'm not even sure that even after the dollar dies, that Bitcoin will become the most popular unit of account, because there are more practical things to measure, like day-to-day items. So if you denominate prices in liters of milk or something like that, that might be even more useful for like a stable unit of account to measure the value of other things in. But this is all speculation. I mean, I don't know if we're talking 5 years. I don't know if we're talking 10 years or 400 years or even 1,000 years here. I don't know where all.
How
where
about
all the
terms of
points
price
in time
point,
are.
right? Like say in turn, and I know we're talking about like future, purchasing power in today's terms, right? But like, is that $1 million Bitcoin? Is that a 5 million? Like, when do we stop thinking about it in terms of dollars?
I want to chime in here because I think, and I saw somebody tweet this out. I can't remember who it was. I think it happens when the countdown clock for Moscow time on my block clock behind me strikes 0. So when you can no longer get a single sat for $1,
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, and I'm just like, that's a $400 trillion. You know what I mean? Like, we're starting to look at a much different place and a much different world. And maybe my
brain. Well, at that point, it's not that Bitcoin has gone up so much that there's enough dollars to buy. It's that the dollar is so broken.
Power. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Where was I in my thoughts? I tweeted something along those lines. Like when Bitcoin was at $63,000, like there will be a point in time where one Satoshi is at $63,000, and I like people. The responses I got to that tweet was like, "You're completely mad. Oh, no one will be able to pay the fees and all of this stuff." But the fees don't matter if it's all on the Lightning Network, right? So not as much anyway, and there might be layer 3 solutions or whatever. A number is by definition infinitely divisible. So of course you can trade Satoshis in other ways than on-chain. This on-chain business is like, you're missing the point. On-chain is Fort Knox. You don't need Fort Knox for everything. Like and Lightning is just a very, very secure payment network. And we got those two and countless other ways of actually trading Bitcoin with each other. I mean, we can still use IOUs. We can still use like a note that says redeemable for this amount of Bitcoin. I mean, there are solutions to that. So I've lost the question there somewhere.
Can I chime in?
We're all trying to swallow 63K
Can I chime in?
per site. By all means.
Okay.
Sure.
So
Greg,
Knut, I was gonna actually try and not say anything in this because I felt I overspoke in the first thing. But firstly, Knut, let me tell you, that was a beautiful. Your exponential, it's all mathematics. Okay, exponential is you want to ride the exponential wave. So that's why you never want to be short Bitcoin. You need a core holding. Your core holding is going to depend on your own risk profile. I'm not about to advise everybody what their core holding is going to be, but it better be more than 0. Okay, and that sounds weak, but there's so many people in the world that have 0. So
more than 0 will be enough at one point.
Okay, but here let's talk about how we're going to get there. Okay, so first of all, I'm an engineer. I wanted to bring this up. If you guys have never seen the blockchain in action on something like tradeblock.com, or there must be other apps out there showing the beauty of the blockchain and the first blockchain ever, perhaps the only blockchain that matters, Bitcoin, it is a thing of beauty. As an engineer, I'm visual. So please check out tradeblock.com. That's what convinced me that this Bitcoin thing was real. Excuse me. So here's what we have. Fiat is mathematically certain. to debase. Yes. When you have total debt in the world, total global debt to total global GDP at a number of greater than 4 times where we are currently, total global GDP needs to grow at a number that's just not fathomable and not possible in order for fiat currency not to debase. Okay. So that is a certainty. There's going to be 2 parallel systems that exist for a while. And I'm not certain I want the world to turn into anarchy or anything like that. And Michael Saylor said this eloquently in his conversation with Frank Giustra. And if you guys haven't watched that, it is a thing of beauty. Again, Saylor is a walking mainframe computer that can actually speak. Okay. As an engineer, I went to school with a ton of really brilliant people like Saylor. The beauty about Michael is he can actually put 2 words together. He's not just a mathematical computer. He is a speaking computer as well. Okay, so fiat is programmed to debase. We need a parallel system. And he actually stated that he thinks Bitcoin is good for the US dollar. And I don't disagree with that. There are 180 other fiats out there, guys. And every single one of them, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, are going to fail before the US dollar does. It's just the way it is. So you need protection against those other 165 before you even worry about the US dollar. There will be a parallel system in which there's a fiat currency for barter, and there is a store of value, the most beautiful thing we've ever seen in the history of mankind, called Bitcoin. Okay, technology, money's technology. But let me tell you a little story. Have you guys heard that story where there's a guy walking through town and he has a cow and he's got a for sale sign on the side of his cow. And he says, I want to sell this cow for 600,000 US dollars. And people are like, are you out of your mind? 600,000 US dollars? He's walking through town and the for sale sign. 2 days later, same cow, same for sale sign. 5 days later, he's walking through town with 3 chickens. Somebody says, I told you you'd never sell that cow for $600,000. He says, darn right I did. I sold it for these 3 $200,000 chickens. That's all a fiat is, guys. It's measuring barter. It means nothing. It is programmed to debase. It satisfies a currency transaction in a point in time. Do not store your wealth in fiat, but use it for barter. And if you store it for wealth, you're a sucker. Okay, Knut, I tried not to say anything. You laid it out beautifully. We may get to 63,000 per Satoshi. Excuse me. My price targets and using credit default swaps and everything. You don't get there immediately. The world is always, you know, it's a dynamic. It's an ebb and flow. We have guys always looking at inflation. I'm going to tell you guys, stop worrying about inflation. It is a concern. The bigger component of fixed income is actually credit. It's actually the worry that all of these other countries fail, that the IMF is supporting, and they're going to fall. Bang, 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 because they have historically as well. Okay. Worry about credit more than you worry about inflation. Don't ignore inflation because it's there.
But they're the same thing.
No, sir, not in my opinion. And we could get into that. I don't want to get too granular. The point is,
but fiat currency is all debt. Like it's only a tiny portion of it.
All true. Okay, yes, all true, all true. So let's not worry too much about that. I want to just tell you there will be a process of getting there, and I'm going to quote the most brilliant guy in the space that I know of, which is Michael Saylor. And he said on that discussion or debate or a slaughter of Frank Giustra that the fiat US dollar could actually benefit from Bitcoin standard. And I actually agree with that. I'm not going to go out and that's not my mantra. Okay. Right now, very simply, at $60,000 or $50,000 US per Bitcoin, guys, it's a rounding error. Do not overthink this. I don't care if it's 40, 60, 50, 35. It is a rounding error. And Scott Minard said the same thing while talking his book. No one knows. $10,000 here and there. Fellas, this is a rounding error. This is the best asymmetric trade I have ever seen in 32 years of trading risk. Okay. Why? Because it has such a tail. It could go to 63,000 per Satoshi. My price target might be, 3 to 4 million US dollars per coin, but you got to get through 100,000 first. So, sorry,
Greg, why do you see a roof? Why do you see?
I don't. But you need to understand me. I've been in markets my whole life. You got to get through 100,000 until you get to 200,000. And I think it's more rational for us. And one of the reasons I don't wear laser eyes, guys, is because I think 100,000 is still a rounding error. I'm not aiming for 100,000. I can give a price target, but not a time. I'll give a time, but not a price target. You never give both. If you give both in the markets, you're setting yourself up to be a fool, okay? So just remember, we're on the right side of the trade. We have an asymmetric distribution, a tail to the right-hand side, which I've never seen in my life before. Let it evolve, and don't hope for the dissolution of the US dollar. Hope for the fact that the US dollar remains as a currency, but Bitcoin is the reserve asset of the world. Asset, why? Because it's digital energy. And as soon as oil and natural gas are priced in Bitcoin, Bitcoin becomes the de facto reserve asset of the world. We can still have a currency. It's called fiat. And it could be 3 chickens for 1 cow equals $600,000. Doesn't matter. Guys, that's why currencies existed, because they eliminated the need for a barter. Okay. And I don't want to get too technical, and I do believe in the asymmetric return to the upside, but we got to do expected value analysis. And I will tell you, one of the things that Justra had against Michael was he thought he was preaching too much. Justra he said to Saylor, you're setting expectations. The reality is we don't have to set those expectations. We just have to tell people it's cheap right now. And in my opinion, once again, this is the cheapest insurance on the default of a basket of fiat currencies that I've ever seen in my life. You got to own it. We don't set price targets over a period of time. We just say where it can go to. Knut, I think you're right. You're on it. It's exponential, but we need to get through the little, the incremental increases. And then we'll go back to Scott Minard. $400,000? Gosh, at that price, you've barely overtaken the price of gold. Like, who really cares? Gold's a rounding error. Like, just flip it off. Gold is 10 trillion. The total addressable market of Bitcoin is 900 trillion US dollars. That's
today, and more tomorrow.
And absolutely, you're totally right. But why don't we talk in today's dollars? So all of this is cool. It won't happen overnight. There's going to be ebbs and flows. Just remember, we're talking anything laser eyes. Guys, we got to change our laser eyes. Our laser eyes got to be, if we do believe this, our laser eyes at 100K,
you just had someone comment in the comment box, laser eyes until fiat dies. I think that's where Greg's at.
No, we're all doing mullets.
I actually don't think you guys are disagreeing, by the way. I've been trying to listen for your guys' disagreement, and I don't think you guys are disagreeing.
Hey, no, 100%. No. I'm so agreeing. Like, please don't get me wrong. I love it.
Well, that's my favorite part of Bitcoin conversations, right? It's like, no, I'm more bullish. No. I'm more bullish.
But Greg, to that point, like if I may quote Michael Saylor myself, it's going up forever, Laura. And that's like the mantra now. And
no, you got to sound more frustrated than that, Knut. Like,
it's going up forever.
Why is it going up forever? Very simply, because fiats are programmed to debase. When you reach 4 times total global debt to 4 times global GDP, let's just run through this. If the average coupon on the global debt is 3%, which is low, Your numerator is growing at 12%. Your denominator, total global GDP, needs to grow at 12% just to keep up with the organic growth.
We haven't done 12% in like forever.
Forever. It never happens. And that doesn't include all these absolutely asinine modern monetary theory people that are saying, oh, it's just add another 4 trillion to the US deficit. Guys, mathematically programmed to debase. All right.
That's all you need to know, really.
All right, sign off. We're good. We got this all figured out. Everybody go smash by, call it a day.
Everybody is pretty excited about the conversation going on here. Solid topic so far. We're going to keep it rolling. 350 people live, tons of chat messages. I got to give a shout out to, who was that said it was Bitcoin Leota.
Right.
Bitcoin, gotta love the Leotas, but he was the laser eyes till fiat dies in the chat. Everybody keep those messages coming. Smash that like, give it a share. We're going to keep rolling, and I'm going to toss it to John. I'm going to let John drop his reason for being bullish. Dude, take it away.
So we sort of hit on this, but I don't think we can hit on it enough, to be frank. And I know Michael was here last week, but the reality is I think we'll forever look back on April 21st, 2021, the 21st day of the 4th month of the 2020, the 21st year of the century, and you simply will know that gold died that day, but it was killed that day. I made the analogy that, like, you can be biased, right? So I was a biased Chicago Bulls fan, right? You see it in my sweater, but like, you still knew that we were winning by 30, right? Like, and you knew that the Bulls were winning. And I try to like highlight that what happened on Wednesday was really, I think, impossible for folks to really, I think, understand, and probably won't for quite some time. Like, we'll have to look back at this 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years, because Michael was absolutely poetic.
Do you want to really quick? Can you just for people that don't know what happened on Wednesday?
Oh man, I forget. Let people know what. Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to set the stage, or do you want me to just?
No, you do it, man. You do it, man.
Well, in simple terms, Michael Saylor had a debate with a gold bug named Frank Justra. Somebody check on that guy, please. Like, I don't know if we've had any check-ins. Has he tweeted since the debate?
I have a plan. I have tons of good info on him. So he's a Canadian. Let's leave it there. Go ahead, John.
I would say I'll leave it at this. They had a debate. Certainly, a lot of us here, either that are watching, listening, or participating in this panel, certainly have a biased perspective. But like I said, the debate was so clear. Michael was absolutely surgical. I drew the analogy of like Tiger Woods at like Augusta in 03, 04 or something. I mean, it was just, it was so clear that by the end, Frank Justra is telling people, right? He went from hey, Mr. Saylor's a snake oil salesman, right? And there was two things that I would note that got me incredibly bullish. One of them got my spine tingling, which is awkward to admit to the world. But the first of it is, at the end of this debate, Justra's telling you, hey, my recommendation is to buy hard assets. And that includes gold, real estate. I forget what else, because it doesn't matter. And Bitcoin. Okay. Michael went in there and he talked to gold bugs. He wasn't talking to you and me. Okay. He was talking to some folks that are getting ready for bed right now. Right. Like, that's who he was talking to. And the reality is he got his opponent to tell them to buy Bitcoin. Came over. He reiterated two key points in my mind. Hey, they told you to put 10% of your investable assets into gold. Okay. What about the other 90%? Right. And then he's telling you, hey, this is what gold companies, various, whether they're miners or otherwise, this is what they're holding on their balance sheet. And it's not gold, right? Like, that indictment was just like, it was epic. It was Hollywood. It was like 1980s Rambo like movie where good and evil is so clear, and Rambo clearly comes out on top. But in closing, I mean, there was this piece, and you catch it on Twitter, but Michael goes through and absolutely preempts the FUD, especially around Bitcoin, mining, environmental FUD, et cetera, talks about about 500, 1,000 years of just the bloody history of gold and what really was like Shakespearean iambic pentameter. Like, I mean, it was clear that he practiced it. It was clear he was ready for it. I saw him kind of pointing some thoughts and notes, but I mean, he delivered that in a way that debate over. You know, it's just like strike them out, throw them out. It's the game was just on and over. And oftentimes I think the opponent knows he's losing before the winner knows he's winning. And in that moment, I saw that he knew he was losing and that this debate was over. And the ad hominem attacks came after that. Right. And so I would leave you with, man, I am more bullish than ever because one of the disciples in the Church of Satoshi, Mr. Michael Saylor himself, absolutely on April 21st, 2021, the day that we'll remember that gold was killed.
I love it. By the way, did anybody also see his equally great, although like it was a one single punch knockout here, but there was Charlie Billow tweeted out like commodity prices over the year and like everything's up like at least double digits, and then down at the bottom of a list of about 15 or 20 things, it's gold at 3%. And Saylor retweeted him and said, it's a long list, but please make sure you read all the way to the bottom, of course, alluding to the 3% only appreciation in gold. And Spencer Schiff, his son, replied, you're brutal. I mean, Saylor's been a wrecking ball in all of this. And I'm curious what some of your thoughts are on what happens to gold from here, because it's been pretty lackluster all year, and it doesn't seem to be performing the way you might expect in this type of an environment. So I don't know, like if anybody can jump on this and talk to what John was saying regarding the debate, but does anybody have any thoughts on the debate and or what happens to gold moving forward?
What time scale?
I mean, like I don't think it's going to disappear overnight, but like what happens 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out?
First of all, I would have to say I agree with John. Michael Saylor's debate was fantastic, and I agree with Greg. He's one of the better thinkers in this space. I mean, when he first came onto the scene, he was a kind of suspicious, like here's a billionaire that I haven't heard of, because I hadn't before he went into Bitcoin, not a lot at least. And it turns out to be a great thinker. Have you seen the Saylor series with Robert Breedlove? It's just fantastic, and I love his all of that. And there are a lot of great thinkers in this space, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. And gold, like I guess Bitcoin will eat a lot of the gold market, at least short term. Over the next 10 years, I think gold will probably appreciate in dollar terms, but in Bitcoin terms, hell no. It will plummet in Bitcoin terms, of course, because Bitcoin has a long way to go still. And after it's gone all that way, it has a long way to go still. And after that, and that just keeps going. So, gold is a dumb rock, and it's good for jewelry, and people will still crave jewelry and whatever. I don't care too much for dumb rocks.
So that's beautiful.
What happens with all the rappers that bought all their grills? Like, at what point do they try to get open dime grills? Right?
Yeah,
like
open dime.
Yeah, that would be something, right?
When is that
a USB stick instead of a tooth? Yeah.
So Knut, that was beautiful. You're right. But it's still, don't forget, it's still a $10 trillion physical market. Okay.
It is.
So I used to trade a lot, right? Hedge funds. I was on what's called the buy side as a hedge fund. I was also a sell side trader. And we had this funny guy that was on my desk. And so each trader gets set a limit, right, as his risk exposure. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day he stood up when the risk guy came around and said, hey, Brian, you've exceeded your limit. He goes, limit? I thought it was a target. Okay, now think about that for a second. Gold is only a target. That's 10 trillion. That's, again, a rounding error in the $900 trillion US total financial, total addressable market. But we do have to get through it. I'm not certain we should be, biting or fighting the $10 trillion guys. Like, there's so many bigger guys out there. And, being in fixed income, I'll just tell you, fixed income's $300 trillion.
But that's where some of that money comes in, though, right, Greg? I mean, the reality is a lot of those gold bugs are coming in with RIA money, etc.
Look. It's
not
all
that I disagree with you. It's still such a small, drop in the bucket.
Disagree or agree?
No, I'm saying I don't disagree with you.
Okay. So let me take a step back and tell you guys, as a Canadian, who Frank Juster was. Frank actually is a proud Canadian who founded a company called Yorkton Securities that basically made their whole so Yorkton Securities is an investment bank or a brokerage, like a Merrill Lynch in the US, much smaller, obviously, but their whole focus was on small cap miners, gold miners. He's defending a industry in Canada that's very substantial. He obviously, was tapped in. He mentioned he was a good friend of Larry Fink, okay, head of BlackRock. All true. The man is a philanthropist. He did admit that, Saylor was right, but Saylor trounced him. Jim Rickards, who is the gold bug, said, I give it to Frank Justra, but let's just admit that Saylor made some good points. Okay, look, Jim, come on, dude. This is embarrassing that you would even go out. Everybody's true colors come out. So, yes, he trounced him, okay? Saylor was a beautiful, but I'm arguing, let's not even focus on 10 trillion. That's, again, it's both of them are hard assets to an extent. I think that gold is not a perfect hard assets, but it's better than fiat. Would we agree with that? I don't even want to defend it. I'll just say this, okay? And Juster said this, we agree on 90% of the argument. And as John said, by the end of it, he was admitting, you're right, Bitcoin should be part of your hard asset allocation. And 10% is pretty weak, right? As Saylor pointed out, gold miners mine gold and then they sell it for fiat. Gosh, that's a pretty lame. So they depress the price of gold. Central banks depress the price of gold. Central banks own 77% of the price of gold. Of the supply of gold. Therefore, gold is almost fiat. Let's understand that gold is almost fiat, and therefore it is not the perfect store of value. Bitcoin is the perfect store of value. Here's what I know. This is what the argument missed. Juster says, oh my God, Bitcoin uses the equivalent of some number of cars, right? It uses the energy of some number of cars. Did you know, and Saylor pointed this out, that the gold industry, mining industry, uses 20 times the energy that the Bitcoin network uses? Hey, everybody says Bitcoin's boiling the oceans. How about you just look at gold? Not to mention the tailing ponds and all the residual contaminants that come out of trying to mine this silly metal. It is over. Go ahead, Knut.
Yeah, I would say fiat is boiling the oceans. Because if there's anything that's destroying the planet, it's the fiat mindset and consumerism. And this is like, Greg, you're saying a lot of clever things, but the thing is, I come from this, I look at this from a completely different angle because I'm not a trader at all by a stretch. I've had stocks once or twice in my life, just a small amount, but I've never been I've never traded in order to just trade and make money off of trading this or that asset. I come from I look at this from a much more philosophical angle, if you will. And I think comparing gold is sort of the best comparison to the best thing in the outer world that you can compare Bitcoin to, but it's still an insult to Bitcoin to compare it to gold, because it's so much better than gold. So like comparing mathematics to one single element, like if you look at Bitcoin as an extra element in the periodic table, it has like the perfect properties for storing value.
Okay,
and
hold on. Can I just say one thing? Can I hug you right now? Because I love you, man. Okay, look, I love you. You're totally right. But you got to understand where all the money in the world is. It's not in the hands of the
but
okay.
Hold on a second, because money is the wrong framework. Like, this is a whole new paradigm and a whole new way of interacting with each other, and a whole new I don't think people will think about value in trading terms in that, like maybe like the question was why are you bullish this week, and I'm talking like way ahead. I'm always trying to figure out what's at the end of the thought vector, but I can't help myself. Like, the properties of Bitcoin are so much better than everything that preceded it. So I just don't think, like you say, that there's this and that money in that, and the energy FUD. It's just so unbelievably stupid, because nobody talks about the alternative cost. I just wrote an article about that, where I saw a tweet where someone complained about Bitcoin using up as much energy as Switzerland. Well, ban Switzerland. Ban the use of Switzerland, for fuck's sake. Switzerland is way worse and way more wasteful than Bitcoin is.
You're so right.
I don't get it,
man. Okay, yes, except, guys, what did currency, again, I tried to do this with my three chickens for a cow example. People need to live. And, North American Indians, I'm a Canadian, North American Indians used wampum as a means of, rather than trading maize or corn for a tomahawk, they said, okay, we'll use wampum as the exchange rate. Look, currencies exist because they are efficient at differentiating a barter. The guy that owned 3 chickens for a cow, what if the guy down the street was selling 4 chickens for 1 cow? The guy that bought 3 chickens for 1 cow, he missed the boat. So currencies allow you to efficiently trade products across the world. Now, a fiat currency for global trade makes sense. My question, and I don't want to discuss this, then why is global fiat trading 30 times the amount of global trade? Well, obviously, there's a lot of speculation going on in fiat currencies, right, guys? But at the end of the day, the base value of a currency is to take the place of these 3 chickens for a cow concept. I love what you're saying, bro, but the money lives right now in these huge pension funds that have to compare relative value amongst different assets. It's no different than 3 chickens for a cow. It sets relative value amongst different asset classes around the world. And the unit of account right now is the US dollar. I believe that will change, but until it does, that's how everyone compares relative performance. Lots of money is made and lost every single day on relative performance. That's, after all, what every single asset class is. And I'll have more to say about this when my time comes up. But Knut, again, I want to give you a hug, dude. You are exactly not a problem. The reality is, I'm just trying to connect the dots to get from A to B, and you're like A, B. And Knut's already at Z plus, okay, Z plus, okay, or Z plus is
That's
for
funny,
our American.
I still haven't learned the alphabet in your guys' terms. Greg, you better be careful, man. You're not allowed to hug people in Canada. I heard you're
not right now, but on Zoom, man, we can.
Zoom hug.
Oh man, I love it. This is great. I'm loving this conversation. This is a lot of fun. We've got. Everybody in the chat is saying they're loving the panel and the rabbit holes that we've dove down so far. So we're going to keep it going. There's like 350 people in here. Smash that like button, give this a share, and keep the comments coming, because we're going to keep bringing them up. I got a shout out to who was it? Somebody, it's way far back, but somebody said rappers with lumber grills. I got a kick out of that one. I thought that was great. So yeah, keep them coming. And we're going to keep rolling, and we're going to toss it Greg, it is your shot. We want to hear why you're bullish.
Why don't you mute me? Why don't you mute me? Because I've already talked way too much. But here's what I'm going to say, okay? Before I get into my little spiel, the classic example of Sailor versus Justra. Do you know who owns Frank.com? Because that's where Justra got his start, right?
Yeah.
You know who owns Frank.com?
Yeah.
Of course, Michael Saylor. So he owns Frank.com. If that's not the classic example of the future versus the past, I don't know what is, okay? So the beautiful thing, and I need to bring this up from a trader's perspective, you know that Michael Saylor started off being negative on Bitcoin, right? He thought it was a Ponzi. So credit to him for peeling the layer of the onion and actually reversing his position. And that's the mark of a great trader. Okay. Mark of a great trader is when they realize that they're wrong and they don't stick with their negative or wrong position. They reverse that position or at least flatten it out. That's the key. So Saylor did that. He changed his mind. And then we'll talk about Schiff for 1 second. Spencer, I love the kid. His dad, I'm not so fond of. At the end of the day, it's all theater. We got to just put this aside. That's not important. I think his son is brilliant, but what his dad's doing is playing the rest of us like a bunch of fools. Just look at Mr. Schiff's performance over the last 20 years in his gold fund, guys. It's pathetic, and let's not even go there. So why am I bullish? All right. I thought you were going to bring this up, Ben, and so therefore I had 2 reasons I'm bullish. I was almost certain you were going to say because of our member of parliament.
Oh, yes.
Pierre, and my wife is French Canadian, Pierre Poilievre, okay, Poilievre. And I'm not sure if that is a Belgian last name in French, but my Lord, that's a tough one to say. Pierre Poilievre delivered a knockdown in the House of Commons in Canada, which was a thing of beauty. And he basically said, modern monetary theory is not in fact modern by any means. It's using the same practice of the last thousands of years, which is basically debasing fiat. There's nothing modern about it. And the man is really, really eloquent in both languages. And I will just tell you, as a Canadian, he gives me hope that there are politicians in Canada that actually understand mathematics, okay? Because Pierre Trudeau's son, Justin Trudeau, he clearly doesn't understand mathematics. Now, math is the base layer of language, you guys, right? Everyone who speaks mathematics can also speak their own mother tongue. Doesn't mean a Chinese person can speak English, but they understand math. It's the same thing. Mathematics is the base layer of language, and so is Bitcoin the base layer of either money or store of value. I'll argue store of value. So that's my first point. And Ben, I'm just going to bring it up because I was certain that was your point, and you didn't do it. So I needed a second one. So if you want to say something there, I'll turn off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly say that if people haven't seen this, there is just an absolutely incredible, I don't know what to address. More of a rant almost of Pierre in the House of Commons, where he goes through a historical context of debasement of various different countries and how it has played out for them throughout history. And then he says, well, that couldn't possibly happen here. And he starts saying how the finance minister says that she is not believing in modern monetary theory, but he then contrasts that with their actions, which seems to suggest that they very much do believe in some flavor of modern monetary theory, which is basically
right there. It says, right, what they bought 80-something% of the amount of money. What was it bought? Share bought by central bank, 80% of the federal of the new federal debt or deficit, right? Crazy. Now, the beautiful thing that also happened is some knucklehead from the opposing party got up in the middle of the speech and happened and interrupted. The Speaker of the House goes, excuse me, Ms. Speaker, do we have to take notes? Because if this is a history lesson, I need to take notes. And I just said to myself, oh my God, the guy was from Kingston, Ontario, which is a voting area. I just said, anyone who lives in Kingston that voted that knucklehead into Parliament should be absolutely ashamed that that's the best thing that he could come up with. Am I going to have to take notes? Because if I have to take notes and learn from history, and it was just insulting as a Canadian that the opposition party is making jokes about this. So keep rocking, Pierre. I know that Jeff Booth knows him. I know that the guy's a Bitcoiner behind the scenes. But remember, it's difficult for a senior federal politician, if your name's not Cynthia Loomis, to come out and say, I love Bitcoin. It'll happen in Canada. And I want this man to be the person that does it. But if it's not him, someone else will do it.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more acceptable. We're seeing politicians around the world a lot. In the States, we've seen a couple mayors come out and say that they're looking to put it into the city's treasury. I'd love to see Pierre come out and just say, you know what, this is kind of what we need. And he says it in this speech. He says that we need a return to sound money. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you go check it out. You can find it on Twitter. I've retweeted it. A bunch of other Bitcoiners have retweeted it. But look him up, Pierre. I'm going to butcher the last name.
Tough. It's Poil Livre. Okay, Poil Livre, and that's tough. Poiliev, it's all good. Pierre P. Okay, Pierre Rochard and Pierre P. need to get on and discuss mathematics. The beautiful thing, as you said, people need to look at it because he is basically calling out the MMTers. Now, MMT has to happen because there's no other solution. That is mathematical certainty that MMT has to happen. Okay, that's what we've dug. That's the hole we've dug ourselves. So don't have your children saving in fiat. Fiat is programmed to debase. And Pierre is basically calling that out. Okay, a beautiful thing. I believe that Jeff Booth, another Canadian who's written an incredible book called The Price of Tomorrow, he knows Pierre. And I think that if anyone has Pierre's ear, I think it's Jeff Booth, and I'm excited about that. Okay, so there is hope for my kids. And Canada, we're an energy rich, natural resource rich nation, and I want Canada to embrace Bitcoin because Bitcoin is digital energy. And any nation that's rich in energy, whether it's hydroelectric energy, whether it's natural resource energy, fossil fuels, you're going to get paid in Bitcoin someday, guys. Why? Because Bitcoin will be the unit of account for energy, because energy and Bitcoin is digital energy. Very simple. Russia does not want to hold US dollars. They do not want to sell their valuable natural resources for worthless fiat. There'll be a time where the Kremlin says, you know what, I'd rather get Bitcoin. Bitcoin's digital energy for my natural energy. This is the time when the US dollar will lose reserve asset status. It won't lose reserve currency status. It will lose reserve asset status. So let's not get into that too much. My second point, so it's 6:20. I'm going to summarize really quickly. Goldman Sachs. Okay, Goldman is like revered on the street. Goldman is Goldman Sachs. They started adding Bitcoin in their asset attribution last week. They compare all other asset classes to the performance of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin blows everything out of the water by such a large margin, not just on a return basis, but also on something called a Sharpe ratio. Don't want to get too granular, but a Sharpe ratio basically divides the return by the volatility of that return and returns a number that compares the volatility of an asset to its total return. It's nothing more than risk adjusting a return if you believe volatility is the purest measure of risk, which I don't, but it doesn't matter. It's called a Sharpe ratio. Bitcoin is so far ahead of every single other asset in what they measure that every single portfolio manager that follows Goldman just lost 10 years of their life. And I'm using that from Zero Hedge. Okay. Zero Hedge came out with a brilliant tweet that said every single portfolio manager just lost 10 years of their life because Bitcoin is now in the attribution index as measured by Goldman Sachs. Like it or not, Knut, like it or not, everybody out there, the big money still is in institutional pensions, institutional investors that follow benchmarks like Goldman's attribution analysis. Okay. And when that happens, CalPERS, who has 60% of their portfolio in equities and perhaps 30% in fixed income bonds that are guaranteed to lose money after inflation, that includes high yield bonds, are guaranteed to lose money after inflation, they better be thinking about assets that they can replace the certainty of fixed income losing money on a real basis. Okay. Very simple. And CalPERS and BlackRock, which manages, I think BlackRock manages $7 trillion themselves. God darn it. Can you imagine if BlackRock decides, hey, we need 1% in Bitcoin? One asset manager, $7 trillion. They flick the switch and say, we're starting to buy Bitcoin. I'm super bullish because Goldman, who is a steward of the street, where all the money still lives. I'm afraid that's where it is. It's not with us plebes, okay? It is in the big money pension funds of the world. And when Goldman starts measuring a new asset called Bitcoin that shows performance that blows everything so far out of the water, there'll be people out there, including Scott Minerd, who say, you know what, I thought it was going to 400,000. I just realized that it's going to 10 times 400,000. Very simple, supply and demand for a scarce asset, 21 million, math and code, buy it, put it away, and don't look at its price. It's a rounding error right now. A rounding error. We're getting overly analytic on something that has the potential to go so much higher. Nobody knows, and nobody can put that. Okay? So don't overthink this, ladies and gentlemen.
I wanted to pull something up because you were talking about Sharpe ratio. And this was, I guess, a quote from Michael Saylor, or a paraphrasing of Michael Saylor. He was talking about gold. I imagine this was during the debate. He said in the last year, Bitcoin up 693% versus gold 4.66% last full calendar year. Sharpe ratio is 4.7 versus 0.43. Over 5 years, $1 invested into Bitcoin, $132 versus gold, $1.33. Gold lost 99% of your wealth. Over a decade, Bitcoin is running at 190% every year versus 1.65% for gold. Interesting.
So that's it. That's the analysis.
Is that bad?
Is that bad? Sorry, I'm not doing the 32 years of Wall Street trading here. But
so are you asking me seriously, Johnny? Or
no,
John? Or,
no,
you're kidding.
You're
kidding.
But I think what's important sometimes is to recognize how easy this decision is, right? Like, I think the reason why the gold play is such a profound piece, even though it's so not necessarily a large part of the market, is really similar to why like something like Tesla, or when Walmart announces next month, because they're behind and they got to throw a Hail Mary pass, and Bitcoin is that for them. But what I think is important is people understand what Tesla is. People can resonate with Tesla. It makes a different headline for mainstream. It de-risks things. Gold is somewhat similar, I think, in a similar way. People understand it, right? Like whether it's like someone in India who doesn't understand what Bitcoin is, like they understand what gold is, right? Like my mom understands gold, man. My mom doesn't even own a computer, right? And so I think like when you start to understand like Bitcoin taking over gold, I think its headline actually means more for the monetary energy that'll flow in after. I don't disagree. I come from a background as a reformed public accountant, right? Like I did the markets in a little bit of a different perspective in terms of translating through trust, which is the antithesis of my hat here. But the facet of understanding, I think, or understating the importance over overtaking gold is really, really, I think, subjective, but still incredibly like understated. I talked about this. I've had this conversation with Tina and others about like the first trillion is the hardest fucking trillion. Like, and like, I think going from 1 to 10 is so much easier than it is from 0 to 1, and going from 10 to 100 is easier than 0 to 10 because of network effects. A lot of what Knut's highlighting in his S curve to J curve theory, if you will. And so I love what you're saying, but no, I'm not kidding. I was kidding. I absolutely know that's absolutely ridiculous. It's part of why Saylor's trouncing was so true, right? It wasn't just math. It wasn't just econ. It wasn't just history. It wasn't just emotion. It wasn't just grassroots versus gloom and doom. It was, you lost 99% of your wealth. Right,
and
that's not a
what?
Democrat, Republican, or right or a left issue.
Who was the optimist and who was the pessimist? Right? Wasn't it?
Well, that's always the case, though. Right?
I know, but wasn't it sad? Don't you understand? The government's going to do this to us. Don't you understand? This is how it's always been, right. Isn't it? It's just FUD. And look, again, it was future versus the past, and it was just a trouncing.
100%. Knut, did you want to tag in on any of this? What are you thinking about what Greg was chatting about?
Yeah, Greg's rant made me think of a couple of things, so a couple of fundamentals, like when we're talking mathematics, and when we're talking the example you gave with early on with the cow and the 3 chickens, and what fiat money really is, and such. You have like. On one hand, you have mathematics, which perfectly describes what's going on in the objective reality. And on the other hand, you have praxeology, which is the study of human action. And it's the great lost subject in all public schools. And it's lost in public schools for a reason, because public schools don't really like praxeologists because they tell too much of the truth. So that's what the Austrian School of Economics is based on, like that all value is subjective, and that people do stuff in order to remove a felt uneasiness. That's why anyone does anything consciously. So what fiat is? Are you familiar with a children's book called The Emperor's New Clothes by a Danish author called H.C. Andersen, or Hans Christian Andersen?
I am familiar.
100% I've heard of Hans Christian Andersen, but no, I'm not familiar with the book.
The Emperor's New Clothes is about a big fat old emperor in a kingdom in Europe that he has employed the most expensive tailor in the world to sew him a new dress for his march down the square, where all the people in the kingdom will come and see him. And it just so happens that this tailor, this is a very condensed version, this tailor he tells him that this is the finest silk you can get, so it's completely transparent, or like people can see it, but it's so fine that you can't see the thread. And he ends up walking the streets naked, believing that he has clothes on. And this is what fiat money is. And all the people cheer him on and tell him what a nice dress he has on, until a child points out that he has no clothes on. So that's the essence of the story. And I love the story so much because I always say that you only need 2 books in this world, and that's The Emperor's New Clothes and 1984 by Orwell. Because 1984 describes what happens if you keep on believing that the emperor has new clothes on. But he has no clothes on, and that's what fiat money is. It requires us all to believe that it has value. But look at what happened in India. Like I think it was like 3 or 4 years back. It was around the last Bitcoin boom, when overnight or over a weekend they banned the use of the 2 highest denominations of physical cash in India. So the 1,000 rupee bill and the 500 rupee bill was banned, and you had to. They announced the law on a Friday, and you had until 3 o'clock to go to the bank and change it all for, or put it all in a bank account to change it for smaller denominations. And of course, you had no time to do that. And the law was implemented on the Monday, so you couldn't do it during the weekend. But what happened to the actual bills after this law was imposed was that they still had value, that just had a little less value. So a 500 rupee bill was worth about 300 rupees afterwards, and a 1,000 rupee bill about 600 or something like that. I don't know the exact, but that's the thing with money. It's just what we, and you could use them, and as long as people believe that they had some value, they had some value. And that's the thing with all types of money, including Bitcoin. It depends on our beliefs in it. And what differentiates Bitcoin from every type of currency that preceded it's that all you need to believe is that 1 and 1 equals 2, like that mathematics work, basically. And that's like cryptography works, the SHA-256 algorithm works. And you need to believe one more thing, and that is that game theory works, and that people will act in their own self-interest. Those are the only two things that makes Bitcoin work. And so there's no that's not a very high threshold. And sooner or later, everyone will realize this. And I know there's a point sometime in the future, as I've said before, where things, where number go up turns into number go absolutely bonkers, because when we add more people to this every day, and we add more people not only that own Bitcoin and hold some Bitcoin and trade Bitcoin and hold a Bitcoin wallet, but we add people like me every day that are completely mad and and think that the price will go up forever. We're added too, in the hodlers of last resort, and we're adding more Gregs and more Johns and more Bens and more Michael Saylors and more Jeff Booths by the second. So
and we're shedding our Talebs.
Yeah. I was actually thinking of bringing a bottle of olive oil with my whiskey here. That was the meme of the day, right?
John, can I give one shout out? Look, I think I mentioned this. I can't remember. Did I mention, Ross Stevens from NIDIG, and when he described, and it may have been Breedlove writing behind the scenes, I'm not going to tell you whether it was or not, but when Ross Stevens described money has always been a technology for transferring, or storing rather, money has always been a technology for storing the value of work, energy, or time expended today for consumption in the future. You think about Bitcoin versus fiat currency. Think about when you were 20 years old, at least when I was 20 years old, and I was on a hot roof, pounding nails, asphalt, shingles into a roof, and I may have earned $20 on that day, 20 fiat dollars, 25 years ago. What's it worth now versus the energy I expended that day to make an improvement on that house? That $20 20 years ago may be worth $1.50 right now, and I don't even need it right now. I need it in another 20 years, okay? So the funny thing is that Bitcoin is actually the purest form of storing the first law of thermodynamics, which is conservation of energy, because it's got fixed supply. Knut, you said it eloquently, all right? It is the store of value. Now, the currency, I'm going to take issue with that, is to facilitate barter. There's a way, it's way more efficient to figure out how much one chicken costs, and that's it's one chicken costs this much pretty well anywhere in your neighborhood, rather than 1/3 of a cow. Okay, that's just a better way of doing things. It doesn't mean that currency stores your value. It means that Bitcoin stores your value, and the two systems can exist in parallel, and they better, because if they don't, that's going to be very dangerous. So all I will say is, again, I love what you're saying, because you and I both, and John and Ben, it's about mathematics. Very simple, the base layer of language, guys. You can't mess with the base layer of language.
I love it. John, do you want to add anything?
Well, there is some level of like poetry, and we joke on Sunday Satoshi service about some of the religious parody, because if you're going to get accused of it, have some fun with it. But like when you're so like I've been fortunate enough to like kind of live on both sides of like the world's economic paradigm, if you will. Like grew up in an incredibly poor circumstance, and my kids won't have to deal with that. And so, you know, when you're like less economically advantaged, you're constantly thinking about money. Like, how can I make more money? In whatever terms you want to think about that, right? Even if you don't understand Bitcoin or sound money, how can I get more money? How can I get more money? When your wealth starts to accumulate, I see this universally. You start to focus more on time, right? And like the beauty of Bitcoin is that it comes to the intersection of money and time, right? Like if you get into like astrophysics, you start to understand space is time. And you really start to understand money being time, and you understand that Bitcoin is the only thing that actually solves that, right? Like that's where truly understanding Bitcoin is, right? Like if you ask the question to someone about space time, it's just like the natural question for them to understand it. And Neil deGrasse Tyson does a really great job of laying this out. I promise not to go too far down this path, but it's like, yo, like if I were to ask you, meet me at 7:00, what's the next natural question? Where? Right? Where at 7:00? If I asked you to meet me at Ben's house, you say, what's the next natural question? When? Right. And so, you know, when you're talking about, and as Michael Saylor lays it out, as you, Greg, and Knut, you lay it out in your book too, right? When you're trading the most scarce asset, your time, and you're trading that ultimately for some form of currency or some form of money, like Bitcoin is the only thing that no matter how much the economic paradigm shifted for me, until I found Bitcoin, I didn't find some sense of relief. Like it was the ability for me to take a deep breath, knowing that, okay, there is a place that I can actually store wealth for my family in the future. Right. And like, you know, as I hear you lay that out, and Ben, I see what you pulled up there on the back end of that, pulled into the screen there. And so, you know, as I think of Bitcoin, I think about it as the intersection of time and money, much like space is time. And so, and that's the beauty of being able to carry that forward into the future.
I would say that. Sorry.
I was just going to quickly tell people on the same wavelength of Bitcoin and the intersection of Bitcoin and time. There's a really great article written by Gigi called Bitcoin is Time. So you can just look that up. Just look up Bitcoin is Time, Gigi, G-I-G-I. And it's great. And there's also an Audible read by Guy Swan on the same page, or if you just go to Bitcoin Audible, you can search that up. It's a great read.
But I would go one step further and say that Bitcoin is condensed time, because it's like the sum of all the hours, all the working hours of not only the working hours, but all hours of all human beings that are living now, that have lived before us and produced things of value for us in this day, and that all the people that will live before the sun eats us at one point, like 4 billion years from now. All that time divided by 21 million. That's what Bitcoin is worth. And we better, and it might be worth even more if we like go to different solar systems in another.
It's actually
part of the
it's one of the times that I really started to come to a new fundamental understanding of Bitcoin, of understanding time, right? Like what time is one directional, the blockchain is one directional, right? You understand its immutability and like its censorship resistance.
Yeah, it's absolutely integral to the system. But I also I find we talk a lot about store of value, but I have a slight problem with the term, because you can't store value since value is subjective. So this is and this is where things get really weird.
If value is
like
energy,
yes,
value is energy. Value is energy. It always is.
There's another phrase that makes no sense to me: digital energy, because like I get the energy reference, but not the digital. Like, because everything on the internet is digital energy. And like the energy, this is a very funny thing, because it's another part where Bitcoin sort of bridges between praxeology and mathematics, or physics and something subjective, because it sort of glues the two worlds together, like human incentives and human action and why we do stuff actually connected to the physical world and to actual energy and thermodynamics and all of this. I wrote an article quite early on about Bitcoin and thermodynamics, and I find this so fascinating. And I think it's very connected to all parts of how Bitcoin function. Like the knowing is owning concept. Like when you in Bitcoin, knowing your private key is owning that Bitcoin, and there's no physical thing to own. And then you start questioning what true ownership really is. Ask yourself what things in your life do you truly own? And if you question ownership, it's like, yeah, I own my car, but it could be taken away by someone pointing a gun at me. And I own my stuff, because it could all be taken away at some point by someone using force, except for my Bitcoin, because there's no way for them to know that I even have them if I have them in my head. So when knowing becomes owning, you remove most of the, like, you disarm people from taking your stuff. The higher percentage of your net worth that is actually in your head, the harder it is to coerce you into doing stuff. And like, violence will not pay off in the same way as it used to. In the future, violence will not give you as good results as it used to do. Like
not only that, but violence, you won't know if you've truly extracted all the value that one holds through violence.
Exactly. And this is what keeps me optimistic, because there's a lot of things to be pessimistic about. Just as Greg says, the dollar will probably be around for quite some time, but all the other fiat currencies will die. Maybe the euro and the yuan will stay a bit longer, but all the other ones are dead. The Swedish krona here, I laugh at it. It's so stupid. It's just a euro bill with another zero on it, and
the Canadian moose shekel as well.
Yeah, the Canadian dollar.
We're in trouble, guys. We are in trouble. We are in trouble.
But to that point, all the fiat currencies will die, and the dollar will probably with the most longevity. But it's nothing compared to Bitcoin. It's still something that can be taken away. It not only can it be stolen from you, your dollar bills, your bank can become bankrupt, and your central bank can dilute the value. It's a lousy store of value, and it's a lousy.
Not lousy. It's horrible. It's mathematically certain. And here's it can be taken away from you by force, or it's taken away from you over time.
Yeah.
By debasing. Okay. So I have everything. I love everything you say. I just want to add, I'm an engineer. The proof of work function, which is energy, that's what Bitcoin is to me. Okay. I'm not telling you have to visualize it that way. But for me, it's digital energy, because its proof of work function is solved using energy. Okay. That's just,
and I agree with that. I like to visualize it as a mathematical battery that can store energy.
You write about this in your book, by the way. This is one of the things that absolutely knocks me off my chair when I was reading it.
You can put electricity in and get a certain part of the world's first digital pi out, which is a part of a fixed number. That's what you get, and that makes you able to store all that energy, because you can trade it for something else at a later point. And a perfect money is a good money across time and space. Bitcoin is arguably better over time than over space. It's still very, very good over space, especially using the Lightning Network. But time is much more important than space. Like the 3 dimensions of space, what we have right now is the Earth, and that's x squared amount of square kilometers. Like that, it's I don't know the exact figure, but it's a limited amount of space. Time, on the other hand, seems endless, because we have the multiple generations of humans waiting to take over. And like you can use Bitcoin to dub your children into knights, just like the feudal lords used to do, and like the and pass on wealth. Like there are old feudal families still living here in this country that have a shit ton of money, all of them, and they all live off of wealth that was inherited from back in the like 15th and 16th century and stuff. So but now everyone has that ability. Everyone's the king that is able to dub his children into actual princes and princesses and lords and ladies. You just have to give them the private keys when you die somehow.
It's so cool to see. And I love, again, beckoning back to the early analogy you made of Bitcoin doesn't just potentially store all value of everyone existing right now, but all value of everybody's effort for every generation moving forward from here on in.
Yeah,
and behind.
Yeah.
And through history. But now it's so much easier to effectively and safely pass down that economic power to generations of your family without having it siphoned away from them. It's truly it's groundbreaking. And I think we see again a lot less of these wealth gaps that were achieved through the perversions of fiat debasement, and a lot more of families that are able to truly pass something down through the generations, and the ones that act irresponsibly seeing not just consequences for themselves but for generations thereafter.
See, Ben, this is really one of the things that I try to hit home. So in the parody that is service on Sunday, like these are one of the things, like, so when you're young, you're worried about the judgment of your parents. And as you have kids, and I know this is kind of a new thing for you, congrats again, man, but you start to think about the judgment of your children. Yeah. Right? What will they think? What is that going to matter? And so like, this is one you just can't mess up. Like with the information you have, you can't mess this up because you're going to have to answer to your kids, right? You know, I had the opportunity to own Bitcoin. Instead, I bought, dare I say it, 8,000 other shit coins, or dare I say I bought gold, or dare I say I bought some real estate with property taxes that are absolutely so crippling that I couldn't even hold the real estate for you until you're old enough to manage it yourself. Whatever, right? Like
I bought GameStop.
Oh my God, Ben, don't hurt my feelings here, but I find that to be one of the most important things, because what's happened right now, one of the unique things in talking about being a Bitcoin dad with 2 young children is that like this is the first generation of like Bitcoin kids, right? Like these will be the first non-orange pilled owners of Bitcoin. They're just going to be indoctrinated, not orange pilled, right? And so like I think the shift is going to be pretty monumental, both culturally, both from a technology adoption standpoint as well. I'm not trying to bear it just as a technology standpoint, but this is one of those really, really powerful, I think, thoughts that I have as I start to think about 10, 20, 30 years into the future here.
So I have 3 children, and my youngest is 21. All right. So this is important to me. John, I went on your profile. I hadn't been connected to you, and I'm so thankful that I met you as one member of this incredible Bitcoin community.
Ditto, man.
And I retweeted your pin tweet, which says, I'm paraphrasing, but something like, if I told you to buy Bitcoin, I'm trying to tell you I love you. And that's deep to me with 3 children who actually are enjoying my journey in Bitcoin Twitter as much as I am, by the number of people that are giving me shout outs.
I stayed away from it forever, man. I can't believe I stayed away from my tribe for this long.
Well, here's the coolest thing, right? I'm 57. Like I grew up, I think I might've said this on I forget, podcasts sort of meld into other podcasts, but guys, I graduated 1986, McGill University. I'd never used a personal computer because they did not exist. I did not have an iPhone that had more power in its hands than put 2 men on the moon when I was 4 years old. Okay. That iPhone, computing power of that iPhone. I remember seeing Neil Armstrong on TV, on a fuzzy TV, jumping out. Okay. And you guys got to understand, I'm 57. I got 3 young kids. So I'm trying to I'm not going to say indoctrinate them. I'm trying to teach them the value of energy. And as an engineer, this is the most perfect example that I have. And Knut, I'm not telling you you're wrong. Believe me, I have a ton to learn in this space, but it's the best thing that man has ever developed in my lifetime and anybody in the past. Gold sufficed, but it's not perfect, and it's not even close to perfect. And Michael Saylor, thank you for taking down a Canadian gold bug who admits that 10% is about how much you should own in gold. My God, how much conviction is that? Like, gosh, that is sick. That is sick that you say that, well, I believe in something so much that you better own 10%. Come on,
That
guys.
10% is more than what gold companies are actually holding.
Oh, well,
in
gold
so.
companies are taking it and converting into fiat. Gold
Huge
companies
is
are succeeding. So
dagger.
look. Guys, you guys have been wonderful. Ben, I'm not sure where you want this to go from here. I don't need to jump off. I just want to say thank you to the Bitcoin community for continuing to teach me new stuff every day, including on this podcast. Knut, I'm going to think in things in your terms. I'm not even going to worry. Bitcoin's going to gap from whatever it is today, 50,000. I guess it'll gap to what, 5 million, and then we'll start from there, right? There'll be a gap daddy that starts at 5 million. And Saylor mentioned it himself. As soon as one central bank comes out and announces they own Bitcoin, that thing will rip. All right, guys, and it'll be, as an old trader it will be a face melting rally. Okay, anyone who doesn't own it will get their face melted off, and that could happen. So don't ever be short. That's all I can say.
The gap happens at 1 sat per 3 $200,000 chickens. I think that's when it happens. I think now is a good time to kind of have closing thoughts. Greg, I don't know if you want to add anything to the thoughts that you just dropped here, or okay, well, I'm getting thumbs up. I want to add a closing thought here, and then I'll pass it to Knut and then John. So I really like this final kind of idea that we've been touching on of the ability of Bitcoin to basically be a mechanism to store the efforts of humanity as a whole throughout all of time. And I think that results in a return to an old mindset that we haven't seen a lot of, especially in our current fiat age. This is the Basilica in Barcelona, and construction of it was started in 1852 by Gaudi. He died in 1926. He knew damn well it wasn't going to be finished in his lifetime, but construction went forward anyways. In 2015, October 2015, they stated that construction is 70% complete. 70% complete. And I've been there, and the thing is beautiful. But I love this idea of not simply building things just for us in the current time for now, but for building monuments for humanity to enjoy well into the future and for future generations to enjoy, which is just the exact opposite of the environment that I personally have grown up in. The entire generation before was focused on pulling value from future generations into their own, to live on it and to thrive on it at the cost of an entire generation that weren't even born yet. They had no regard for it. And now, so I was just going to say,
sorry for interrupting you, but the past generations, it was not their fault. They were fooled into this kind of behavior. I just like to add that.
Yeah, it was facilitated through certain means, but
Ben, keep blaming the boomers, man. Let's get with
that. There are some excellent Bitcoin boomers.
Greg, you, Tina, and the funny thing is, you know what's funny about that, Ben? I'm sorry we're interrupting, but boomers that are actually on that have been orange pilled or on the Bitcoin sharing, they will make fun of boomers the hardest, like the boomer gold bugs. But I like where you're going with this, Ben. So please take
Gary Leland is also a great Bitcoin boomer.
Oh, I can't wait till BitLock boom in August.
Yeah,
I'm so looking forward to it.
But yeah, like, I mean, the whole general idea of shifting from a mentality of siphoning wealth from future generations, moving into the antithesis of that, which is creating a system that allows us to have mannerisms and habits that not only enrich and push us in better directions, but provide more for future generations, I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm just glad it's here. That's all I have to say about that. So I think what I'll do here, I'll jump to Knut and then we'll get John for final thoughts.
Yes, every innovation and every tool that mankind ever came up with has the same purpose, and that is to save someone time somewhere. If it's the inventor or if it's someone else, it's there to save them time, to reduce tedious labor and save them time, to remove some uneasiness somewhere. Bitcoin is the ultimate time-saving tool because it's like a pie which everyone can get a piece of, that grants you access to all the other time-saving tools, and it facilitates trade, and it's just completely awesome. And as I said before, it's all the efforts and all the tools and all the inventions of historic times, of the present, and of the future, combined and divided by 21 million. That's what we're looking at. So you cannot be. No one is bullish enough on this thing. It is so much bigger than the internet itself, and so much bigger than everything else we ever invented. So you're all too bearish. Shame on you. Go figure it out.
I think that's a great cap off for you, Knut. You're all too bullish. Shame on you.
John, I wish I could hear that, man.
up.
I just have like Capsule Dell yelling in my ear. F no. 200 sat, $200,000 per sat. What was that? 63. No, that's what I hear. So I didn't catch the end part. No, I'm kidding. That was awesome, man. Thanks for making me smarter.
John, any final thoughts that you have for the episode?
Honestly, I think this is such one, Ben, super honor, man. Thanks for saving me like dozens and dozens and dozens of hours on helping people set up their hardware wallets by just sending them to your YouTube channel. So talking about time saving, I'd be remiss by not sending you a quick thank you for that. But all joking aside, man, super honored to hang out with really, really beautiful like thoughts and minds and people. And so like one of the coolest things about being in the Bitcoin community is you kind of get to have arguments about almost nothing because you agree about so much with some of the smartest people on the planet. And so, I would just tell you, I really do believe it. If someone's told you to buy Bitcoin, that was their way of telling you I love you. They just didn't know how to say it. And so, I do think I'm more convinced every day that this is the most noble of causes. And, as a dad, who's focused on trying to raise some non-fiat but really curious children, it's impossible for me not to kind of have, this emphatic this emphatic passion to kind of share and help to prepare them for a world that they'll have to understand Bitcoin to be fully prepared for. And so, this is a lot of fun. Just a couple of final thoughts for perhaps some of those that are getting ready to raise some non-fiat kids out there.
I love it. Thank you so much. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I like how deep we got on some of these subjects. I really enjoyed the conversation, everybody bouncing ideas off each other. And again, thank you to everybody in the chat. We had like,
I thought I had, do I have one last chance of saying
something?
Oh
yeah, absolutely.
So here, love it. Guys. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for having me. I'm going to tell you a story looking backwards. Okay. And this involves my granddad, who was involved in 2 world wars. And in the First World War, he was a fighter pilot in a Sopwith Camel. So you guys remember the Snoopy cartoon where Snoopy is flying in a Sopwith Camel is a biplane, 2 wings, and he's flying over Italy. My granddad is flying over Italy, and he has a German fighter pilot in his sights, and the German fighter puts his hands up and points at his machine gun on the front of his plane. indicating that the machine gun is jammed. So my granddad points down to the ground, and they both fly down and land in a field in Italy. And the German pilot jumps out of his fighter cockpit with his pistol in the air, drops his pistol on the ground, disarmed. My granddad runs over, picks the pistol off the ground, runs over to the front of the German fighter, rips the machine gun off the front of the fighter, throws the machine gun in the back seat of his Sopwith Camel, or the front seat, to be honest, because it doesn't matter, throws it there, shakes the German pilot's hand and says, "I'll kill you legitimately in the sky, but I will not kill an unarmed man." Now, they were fighting on opposite sides of a philosophy, but there was honor and freedom, and both world wars my granddad fought in. He was awarded the Order of the British Empire. I grew up with a German machine gun in my basement from World War I, okay, that we ended up donating to the Canadian War Museum. My granddad did not fight like that for fiat currency maniacs at the central bank to debase the future of my children. So I'm going to bring the past into the future. My granddad would have been a Bitcoiner. Why? Because he believed in freedom. Bitcoin is freedom of speech. Bitcoin is math and code, freedom of speech. Bitcoin is truth, and it's freedom of investment. Please take John and Knut's and Ben's advice for your children and think of my granddad, okay? He didn't shoot an unarmed man out of the sky. They went down, shook hands, and said, "Guys, we'll do it on honest terms." We are not fighting on honest terms right now, okay? Bring it home for your kids in honest terms. Math and code, 21 million. Base layer of language. Please, don't let these central bankers hoodwink us any longer, okay? It's for our children. And thank you so much for having me. John, I am a huge fan. Knut, I can't wait to read your books. Bitcoin Twitter and Ben, I'm learning stuff every single day. I only think back, growing up with a machine gun from World War I in my basement, hey, that means something, okay? This is not, guys like American HODL and all these guys give service to our country. They don't give service to our country so they can just destroy it with this thing called fiat. We need to be accountable, and Bitcoin is the first and most accountable unit of account that I've ever seen. Thank God. And we're optimists. We're not pessimists, we're optimists. So thank you for having me.
I love it. That was great. I think every episode of BTC Sessions should end with a Foss story. I think that would be fantastic. But guys, I will say once again, thank you all for joining me. Awesome chatting with you all. Thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you to the hundreds and hundreds of people that have been in here watching, listening, commenting, and engaging. It's been a blast, and it always is. This happens every Friday. Knut, Greg, John, thank you again. I'm going to cut your audio and video right now, but I'll stick around for a minute after we go offline just to say a quick goodbye. But if you do have to run, no worries. And everybody else here, guys, what a ride. What a good time. Always the best part of my week. So much fun chatting with great Bitcoiners. I couldn't ask for more. This is my job. What the hell? It's great. But as always, please do hit like, subscribe, share, all of those things. Honestly, they help so much. And lots of people have been doing it. I've been noticing more and more people watching. And it's fantastic. It bumps these episodes and this content in front of so many more people when you do that. So share it out everywhere. Preach the good word of the sessions that are happening here. Really enjoy these rips. As always, you can also help with the show in another way. You can hit up the sponsors I mentioned down below: LEDN, Cobo, Bitrefill, BillFodl, all linked in the show notes. And if you really loved what you saw, you can always hit me up with a Bitcoin Lightning Network tip. Maybe it'll go into my sons and daughters' college funds here. Maybe that'll be my tipping account here. But yeah, tippin.me/@BTC sessions, and I'll help them build a better future. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. As always, I have been Ben. This has been your daily session. Have a wonderful day or evening, wherever you may be. I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.